What is up, everybody? It's your boy Corn. Welcome here to the Half-Ass Pod. And I know what you guys are thinking. It's Saturday night. What the fuck are you doing going live? Well, let me tell you. We're doing a movie review, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just any movie review. It is Blade Runner, the final cut. But without further ado, over here to my left, ladies and gentlemen, sitting here in his car, Smith. Smith, say what's up to the people, man.
What's up, people? Coming to you live from the 96 Saturn without AC. This is the car edition.
Please tell me you're racing that, by the way.
Dude, I can take on some of the V6 Challengers and Mustangs, like with this four banger. They don't see it coming.
And ladies and gentlemen, down here we have the author, the creator, the illustrator, the end-all and be-all of not only Walter Paisley Cafe, but ladies and gentlemen, Spadal, Mark Plaid. Mark, say what's up to the people, man.
It's too bad she won't live, but then again, who does?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a movie to review for you guys, and it is Blade Runner. And let me tell you guys something. This has been a long time coming, by the way. I believe one of you guys, if not both of you guys, told me a while back, Corn, you need to watch this movie. And I said, I'll watch it when I watch it. And then, lo and behold, we came up with the idea again. Say, hey, you know what? Let's pick a concrete date to review Blade Runner. And man, I gotta say, man, I'm kind of mad I didn't watch this movie as a kid, like years ago. I'm so mad I haven't seen this movie at all in my life, and because I actually had to watch it a second time. When I watched it the first time, it's a lot of information to kind of, I guess, digest while you're watching this movie and going through and trying to figure shit out and trying to figure out is Deckard, all this other stuff, right? So I had to watch the movie a second time to really actually fully, I still don't fully understand the movie, but to actually kind of get at least a little bit of a grip on the story of Blade Runner. Man, I gotta say, I really enjoyed it the second time. Like the first time, it was more of like, what kind of movie is this? But I still fuck with it kind of thing. And then you get towards the end, and once I got towards the end, I was like, man, this movie really should not be bombing. It really shouldn't. And then once you got to that last scene where it was what's his name? Batty, right?
Yeah,
Batty
Roy
and
Batty.
Deckard. Yeah, Roy Batty, man, and Deckard. That ending was I actually really like that ending. I've seen a lot of people say things about the ending that they didn't like. I see the other side saying that they really loved it. I liked it a lot. Like it kind of put that final stamp onto this movie to me. So, look, Blade Runner gets a vote in my book, and I cannot wait to sit down and watch Blade Runner 2049. But I know that you two have seen it. By the way, guys, tonight's going to be more of like a discussion sort of thing when it comes to the movie review. We're just going to be just laid back, chill, just a discussion about Blade Runner Final Cut, because I'm sure there's so much that needs to be said about this movie, whether it's got to do with the production or whether it's got to do with the actual story of the movie, the writers, Ridley Scott directing, the whole 9 yards. So tonight's just going to be more of just a discussion about Blade Runner, especially when it comes to the final cut. So Smith, I'll start out with you, man. After watching this movie again, I'm sure you watched it recently, correct? So after watching this movie, the latest time, how did you feel?
Well, for me, Blade Runner is kind of like a religious experience, so I watch it once a month. Like, I'll sit down because it really is my favorite movie. I don't know if you ever noticed this, but that's supposed to be Roy Batty.
Okay.
It was a free tattoo. I know it looks bad.
Rucker Howard.
The dude was like, yo, let me do something on you. I'm like, all right, do this. So like, whatever. But speaking of that ending, that's all impromptu. Like,
yeah,
that wasn't the director's original plan. He was like, yo, this dude's good at monologuing. Just put him in front of the camera and just let him say whatever. And like, became like this epic speech. But yeah, I love this movie. Honestly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter. Last time I watched it, I still have fond memories. It's like burned into my mind.
So I have to ask you though, because I did a little bit of research earlier today on my lunch break, and one of the things that stood out was that pretty much Rutger Hauer did that on his own, that monologue, and I was like, because it was really good. That ending is that monologue kind of tied in. I wouldn't say it tied everything in, but it kind of tied in that ending part of the story where it's like you kind of feel empty. And I wouldn't even say completely empty, but you kind of feel like there's something left on the table if he did not do that monologue. You know what I mean? If you didn't get that speech. But Mark, what about you? You saw this movie again after watching it for the at least this latest watch that you've had. How did you feel?
I don't watch it once a month, but yeah, I mean, I am on the same page with Smith as far as how excellent this movie really is. The films that I would consider a perfect film, like maybe a little flaw that I found in my viewing today.
So I think
where he was being interviewed by the other.
Some alien transmission there. Are you hearing that?
All right, Mark. Now say something. Say something now.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I think he growled.
Oh.
So I think Mark's getting into his audio right now. So Smith, you mentioned that this is your favorite movie, and I kind of want to ask you, man. Kind of got to ask you, what about this movie makes it your favorite movie? Is it some of the themes in this movie in terms of the story? Is it just the characters? Is it I'm guessing you got Rutger Hauer. What's his name in the movie again? I only know the actor.
His name is Roy Batty in the movie.
Roy Batty. That's right. I keep forgetting it. I saw this movie 2 days ago. But Roy Batty. So you got Roy Batty tatted on you. So I kind of want to know what makes this movie your favorite movie.
That's a that's a hard question. I thought this was an organic conversation. Here you are, putting me on the spot. Yeah, I mean, it's the motif, the theme of it. Like, so here we have a guy who is designed to die in 6 years, and everyone's life is temporary. Not to be fucking weird about it, but we're all gonna die. And the way he came to terms with it, to me, is pretty noble. He realized he didn't even kill Deckard, even though he could have right there, and he killed all of his friends. But he's like, I'm leaving anyways. I'm gonna leave you, and I'm gonna give you a bit of information before I leave. He just sat there and he fucking died. It's a good scene, and that's just the ending. I mean, I could talk about every scene in the movie.
Did he? By the way, did he actually transfer information to him as he was dying? When he's like sitting there they're in the rain and Decker's laying there.
He gave him like the speech, is what I mean by transferring information. No, there's no like telepathic shit.
Because you see, because after the speech, you see him sit there for a minute, and he kind of closes his eyes a little bit, and then he opens it, and it's just like, did something happen, or
It's not canon, although it might be like pseudo canon because I think the director has made comments on it. But I think that's the moment when Deckard realizes that he is a replicant as well.
That's the controversial one, right? That's the big controversial.
That's the argument when they bring up the film. Like, well, no, Deckard's a replicant. I'm like, nah, he's a human. Like, back and forth.
The writer though, I forget the writer's name, but the writer, I believe, of the book or the movie. But he said that he left it open for interpretation, right?
Right.
Pretty much whether he kind of left that door open to whether Deckard would be a replicant or not. And that's at least one of the interviews that I watched earlier.
But if you ever get to 2049, I think it confirms it basically.
Really?
Like yeah, I don't want to. You should have watched it because now I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to fucking ruin it for you.
Go ahead, Mark. I think we hear you now.
I read a. Oh, I read on the Wikipedia.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello?
There we go. We hear you now. Or not?
Okay, can you hear me now? All right.
And he goes back out. All right. Well, sorry about that, guys. I think Mark's dealing with some technical difficulties into his internet over there in Ohio. So but just to go back to Deckard too. At the beginning of this movie, we see Deckard. He asked one of the replicants these questions, right? Actually, let me ask you a question. So this wasn't Sean Young's character, was it? But the very first replicant or the person that he was questioning when at the Tyrell Corporation, right?
So you're talking about when Deckard wasn't interrogating what's her name?
Yeah, but like he like sits her down and like Tyrell's there, like he's like right there in the same room. Was she was a replicant, right? Or was she a woman that they were thinking that she was a replicant? See, that's the whole thing about this movie where it's like it's so confusing sometimes.
She was a replicant that Tyrell designed with implanted memories to make her not know that she was a replicant.
And make her feel like, okay.
So she had the memories of Tyrell's real niece implanted in her head.
Okay. So that would make sense then. That would make sense that Tyrell literally was that guy that was pretty much, taking these replicants and putting them out there and integrating them into the world and making them think that they were human.
Well, that was his plan. She was like the beta test because up until this point, and if you watch the Blackout short film, I think that one's actually prior to this film, which is why replicants are banned on Earth in the first place, because they blew up the power grid essentially. So like they just can't be trusted because they only live 6 years. They're like they come to this realization and they just kind of go off. They just go off. So he was planning on making replicants that are more subservient by giving them the gift of memories. Like they just wouldn't be as like emotionally young, maybe react better to some situations.
So in terms of these replicants, man, because you hit a pretty good point. When they realize that they're replicants and they went haywire, in that event that you're talking about in terms of Blackout, right? So does this happen every single time? When does this happen every single time a replicant realizes like, oh shit, I'm not a human? Then they just start going crazy. They start killing people? Like, do you know?
It doesn't happen every single time. And you'll find out in 2049 that some of them, after realizing that, they get off the grid and they just sort of ghost society, because they don't want to be found by Blade Runners, and they live relatively peaceful lives. Some of them, but it's just like people. Some of them are crazy, some of them aren't.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have an emotional past or experience, you're more likely to react in a dangerous way. I don't even know what words to use here.
I like this movie more and more. After watching it the first time, I'm like, I really fuck with this movie, but I still need to understand it more. And then I watched it the second time, and I was like, wow, I legit like this movie. I legit fuck with this movie. Now, I'm not saying like it's my favorite movie or anything like that, but I legit fuck with this movie heavy for quite a few reasons. I mean, you talk about just the thought of replicants, right? The thought of having these fucking things that look like humans on Earth, but they're not humans. and they're here with us. And sometimes some people you just can't tell. Some replicants you just can't tell. Now, where it kind of comes into place with me is where you have Harrison Ford's character Deckard, where he has to pretty much sit down with these replicants and figure out whether they are human or not. And that's the interesting part, because remember at the beginning of this movie, relatively at the beginning of this movie, where he's sitting down with old girl, he's questioning her, and then Tyrell says, "Hey, look, man, you usually ask about what I think he said 70 questions or some shit like that with a normal replicant or whatever, but he said that he asked 100 with her." So that's when I was like, huh. So would that mean that, he kind of had a hunch that, whether she would be, or did he need more proof? Now, maybe I'm reading too much into this. I don't fucking know. But, maybe he needed more proof that she was a replicant. Is that something that you did? Is that something that went through your mind, or did you even think of that? Because again, maybe I'm just reading too deep into it.
Well, it's the whole thing about that is she was a Nexus 6, which is like the newest model of replicants, and they're a bit harder to tell, because the whole reason he went over to the Tyrell Corporation to do that was to see if the Void Comp test even works on Nexus 6 anyways. And I guess from what we saw there, it's way harder to determine whether or not they're real.
And I think, and this might be a bogus, not even prediction, but I guess theory. But I think that that they actually led us to believe that Deckard is a replicant. I don't know if he is. Man. I mean, because all right, question about this too. Because again, I'm definitely gonna have to watch this movie, maybe even probably a third time. But I'm definitely gonna watch 2049 first, so that I can at least watch that first and then watch this again. And obviously, I'll probably watch the shorts too, but it depends on whether I like 2049 or not. But I think Deckard is a human. And the reason why I think he's a human is because they talk about like his eyes changing colors and shit like that. But I think when you look at everyone else who was a replicant, Deckard was still different. Yeah, Deckard had, here and there, he had a couple of characteristics or whatever. But in terms of his personality, Deckard is I still believe that he's kind of sort of like, he's a human. Now, whether or not he's actually a replicant, obviously, I guess I'll find out in 2049, and my theory will be debunked of him being human. But I think man. I mean, does it change the story? Like, does it change your view on the story? Does it change your view on Deckard with him? I mean, spoilers aside, obviously, but with 2049, or I guess even as many times as you watched this movie in Blade Runner, is this something to where it's like, okay, if he is human, does it change the perspective? Does it change the way we view him if he is a human, or if he is a replicant?
I was always like team human for Deckard until 2049 came out. And now I'm on the fence. I really don't know. And it's just like the first one, the director left it open to interpretation. But I think the story's more meaningful with him as a human, because he's viewing this and like realizing his own mortality, which is longer than theirs, but still, if he was a replicant, it just seems like it's not the same.
Wait, so if he's a replicant, because is it all replicants live up to 6 years?
That would be the idea. Yeah.
So he couldn't be, right? If it's 2040, right? Yeah, because this was 2019, right?
But if Tyrell designed him as a replicant to live longer than that, he could do that. If he had like an intent and purpose for him,
Well, there it goes. There it fucking goes.
And
holy shit, dude, that just tells you, man. Like, there's so much I need to fucking watch when it comes to this movie.
The book's not worth it.
I'm not a big book guy, so
yeah,
like
neither am I. But I gave this one. The book's called "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?" I gave it a chance, and like, I mean, it's a good book. They based the whole movie off of it, but it's not the same. It's like too far off to where you don't get the same feeling. And like what they did with the visual media with this it's not comparable to a book.
Bro. And let's actually, before we get on top of the digital aspect of this movie, shout out to Kavari. Kavari says, "Wait, didn't HBO Max announce a series based on the franchise?" That would be new. That would be very new news to me. Smith, do you know?
I have no idea, but if you want to look up the article, Kavari, and verify, like,
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
yeah. Please hit us with that. That article in the chat, please. Because that's interesting. That's interesting. Because again, like I said, after watching this movie, I'm definitely like a fan of this, but only because I wouldn't say only because it's still interesting. Like just everything, like we're about to talk about, like the set and the design, like every single fucking scene was very particular, right? Very detailed, and this movie was way ahead of its time. By the way, the digital aspect of it. This was way before we started getting the movies that we got now, y'all. Like this was a movie that was, again, ahead of its time in almost every aspect. But Smith, I want to ask you, man, in terms of, I mean, if you, I wouldn't say rate, but if you had to take a look at the digital aspect of this and take a look at the set design of this movie, I mean, what are your thoughts, man?
I mean, that's one of the main attractants to this film is just the, and then they're really the first ones, like they are before their time. They pioneered the whole, oh, look, we got neon lighting and rain, which now every sci-fi punk movie does. Man. Like, think about Cyberpunk 2077, the video game. That's all.
Yeah.
That wouldn't exist without this film, without this director's vision and all the artists who worked on this. And not to mention what they did without CGI. Like, I don't think they can make CGI look as good as this, and they didn't even have it back then.
I wouldn't say it wouldn't look as good as this.
Dude, there's no way. Like, looking at this, all the shit that I see, like, think about Avatar. That looked great, but I could still tell. Oh, yeah, a giant CGI Avatar tree. Like, okay.
Yeah. I will say this about Blade Runner. This was something that definitely ushered in a new everything that this movie had into the universe, because after Blade Runner, you started seeing stuff like this. You started, like, I mean, I would go as far as saying that maybe not the original Tron, because that probably came out before this. Maybe I don't know, but Tron Legacy definitely inspired from this. Definitely, like that Disney, new gen Disney version of it definitely inspired from this.
Oh yeah.
Ready Player One, I would say a little bit from this as well. Because when I watch this movie, I'm like, wow, this definitely ushered in. Like, you didn't see anything. I tried going back too. I tried looking up, future movies about the future, 1980s, 1970s. They don't look like this. And this was what, 82? 1982 is when this came out?
Yeah.
I mean, this was relatively. Now, I will say this too. In terms of, I still got to go back and again, like, this is a movie that I feel like I have to study at this point, because just from the little bit of stuff that I researched from what was going on outside of the movie and all the production stuff in terms of the movie, it's a lot. And I haven't even like scratched the surface about this movie. Like, there's a huge following to Blade Runner. There's a bunch of people that have done research about the shit in this movie, done research about the hell, even the characters in this movie. But Ridley Scott definitely did something in terms of adding all the details in this movie and making Decker this character. Now, I will say this too. Decker, to me, is not the greatest main character of a big franchise, or at least a well-known franchise that I've seen. Like, there were times where I was like, I really don't like, not that I hate Decker or anything, but there's times in this movie where I'm just like, I'm really not feeling Decker. Like, I'm really not.
Are you talking about the written Deckard or Harrison Ford's performance?
Ooh, you're right. You're right.
I mean, and then
it's probably got to be Harrison. It's probably got to be Harrison, because I know he and Ridley were fighting.
He also he's confessed to being completely stoned the entire time he was filming this. Like, if you look in the movies, his eyes are like the dude's fucking like smoking dubs before he walks on set.
Bruh. I am dead. I am dead. You know, and that would explain a lot too, because he and Sean Young, they didn't get along either, and they had to have like an intimate scene together.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bruh, how do you like not get along with the person that you have to have pretty much like a sex scene with? Like, how the fuck does that? How do you fuck that up, Harrison? Like, how? but I want to go back to what you pointed out though. Harrison Ford's character, or Harrison Ford's his portrayal of this character,
yeah,
and then the way the character was written, and that's a tough one. That's a tough one because now, like you said, man, like I might have to go with Harrison Ford's performance of in this movie. Now, whether 2040 again, everything you hear about this movie is like, then why did he come back for 2049?
Well, he was in 2049.
That's what I'm saying. Like why did Harrison Ford come back for 2049?
I think the director probably just wanted like continuity there, because he's not even like the main character, I would say, in 2049.
Okay, that would be what, Ryan Gosling?
Yeah.
That movie star-studded, by the way. You got Jared Leto, you got Batista, you got Harrison Ford.
It's a blowout. Absolutely.
Like I don't know. And you know what's funny is I have this rule. I don't go see a sequel if I haven't seen the first one. And that's why I didn't go see 2049, because all the signs were there for me to go see 2049. I was like, man, this movie looks awesome, looks cool. But I didn't see the first one, so I'm about to sit out on this one. And I just never had the motivation to see the first one, unfortunately. But you bet your ass I'm going to be watching 2049, whether tomorrow night, probably tonight. But yeah, I mean, Harrison Ford, look, they had their shit going on, off camera or whatever. Him and old dude Ridley Scott, which, by the way, I have to continue crediting Ridley Scott just because of what he's done with this movie. Because, whether, you really fuck with, Ridley Scott and his resume of movies before and after this, I fuck heavy with the choice of him wanting to direct this movie. And I fuck heavy with the choice of him actually wanting to bring to life the future and what we perceive to be the future for so many decades, what we perceive to be the future of the year 2019. As we all know, 2019 did not end up like this. So 2021 didn't even end up like this. So yeah,
we can hold out for 2022.
2022. The flying cars. Look, man, they even did the flying cars awesome in this movie. I like the way everything is dark in this movie. It doesn't have to be, that there was barely any sunlight in this movie, from what I saw.
I don't think there was any.
Yeah,
no direct sunlight at all.
Yeah, so you know what other kind of vibe this kind of gave me a little bit, and I might be a little bit far off from this. Matrix.
Yeah, for sure.
Got a little bit of Matrix feel in this. But yeah,
you could even argue that the Matrix took something from this film as well, with like the earlier on club scenes and like how dark the lighting was before. The whole movie, really, yeah.
The way some of the buildings were built too.
Oh yeah.
Like in terms of like window, you got like the bar window thingies, like the sliding bar windows shits. This movie's, I mean, obviously, that goes without saying, right? This movie's history. But this movie is legit history. And I'd probably say history making. I mean, we talked about before on the, before we started recording about how Harrison Ford was coming from two other huge franchises, and he was pretty much worn out by the time he got to Blade Runner. which I guess would probably explain the whole being stoned on set 24/7 and not getting along with the director and his co-stars or whatever. But him coming from Indiana Jones and Star Wars, and him pretty much shitting on Star Wars and Blade Runner, which is crazy. Because he didn't shit on Indiana Jones, and I'm not a big Indiana Jones fan, just saying. But anyways, but again, I also have not seen like the last 2 Indiana Jones movies either, so that's that. Just putting that out there. But Smith, in terms of this movie, I know we're this is more like a relaxed version of our movie review, but I do want to ask you, in terms of this movie, if there's one thing you would tweak, because there are 7 versions of this fucking movie, but if there so I'm pretty sure the tweaking has already been done if there was. But if you could tweak anything in this movie, what would it be and why?
All right, I've got one thing for sure, and that's who they cast for the initial replicant that we see on screen who kills the other guy. The dude
That shoots him, right? The one at the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's his name? He's the dock loader, right? The one who can lift heavy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they choose him? I don't know. His performance was good, but like he does not look like a being genetically engineered like some perfect human. He looks like he just got done working a shift at a dock, like a real life person. Like he's got a beer gut, like he's off to the pub. It just sort of takes me out of it. Cause I'm like, oh, these are like genetically engineered, perfect, super people, and you got this dude with like a patchy fucking beard on camera. Like I don't know.
But I mean, he is a replicant though, so I mean, I guess you could kind of get away with it a little bit.
Like, but if you were gonna replicate something, because they're sold as slaves.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bad example. I mean, like, but why would you pay money for this one when like they could make a fucking better one?
Facts.
Like, cause Roy and Pris and Zora, they all look like superhuman.
Yeah.
I mean, they're actors, they're good looking people, and they're like, you're like, oh yeah, these people were fucking created in a fucking lab. Like, then you look at the other dude and you're like, what the fuck did they do? Is this like the Bad Batch one or?
Facts. That's mega facts because, and I agree with you too because it's yeah. I mean, you look at the guy, and you're like, all right, believe me, he can lift heavy things. Believe me, he's capable of doing this. Just believe me. You got to see it for yourself. And it's just like, okay, I can kind of see where you're coming from. I will say, for me, a lot, and I hate saying this because I love the Roy Batty character. If there was one thing I would fix, it would be him walking around trying to get, because I thought before, and he's not in this movie a whole bunch, at least in the first half. But when you do see him in the first few scenes, it's like, all right, I thought he already kind of knew this stuff, this information that he's trying to get. I thought, to me, before we started seeing Roy running around trying to get answers, I was like, damn, I thought he already had the answers. I thought all the replicants were kind of caught up to speed in terms of, but apparently not. But again, it didn't take me too much out of it. It wasn't like, but I was just like, I want to see more, of, this story progressing, not more of like, okay, now we have to kind of step back and he has to catch up with the audience now, kind of sort of thing. But I mean, I get it. Maybe that's not in. Maybe that's only in the final cut. I don't know. By the way, have you seen any other cuts other than the final cut?
Yeah, I think I've seen the director's cut. That's the one with the narration, and I've seen the theatrical release as well.
So I gotta ask you, man, how's the director's cut? Because I watched a couple scenes on that one. And yeah, it sounds pretty bad.
That might be why Harrison Ford hated this movie so much. It's because like he was doing the narration initially. It's like, I don't need him to tell me what fucking language the dude is speaking. Like when they're at the noodle bar initially, it's like, it's too much.
I gotta say it, and I also so apparently Harrison Ford did this shit as a joke. Like, so when they told him that he had to do narration, because apparently they told him that he had to do it. So he did it as a joke and didn't think that they were going to actually release it, and they did release it. That to me, I thought was interesting. That to me, because I don't think you would see anything like that happen nowadays, where it's like, oh, well, I'll just do this as a fucking joke, and they actually release it. And they're like, yep, this is the director's cut. And also the final cut apparently the final cut did not involve Ridley Scott when they did some of the editing.
Didn't know that, but
yeah, apparently
which is weird because it's the best one. So it's like, well, Ridley Scott was almost there, I guess.
I mean, they still took his movie, you know. I mean, it's still like, you know, his movie, obviously, but you know, it's kind of like doing a Snyder cut without Zack Snyder. You know what I mean? It's kind of like doing like a WB cut and calling it, you know, the final. I mean, it is called the final cut, so it's not like it's, you know, Ridley Scott's cut, you know, Ridley's cut or anything like that. But later on in the movie, in the final cut, you see the unicorn and Deckard's thoughts, dreams, what do you want to call them? But he has a vision of that unicorn, correct?
Yeah.
And in other versions, it's not. So now, because after watching one of the interviews, they said, well, not they, I don't want to say they, like in general, but a couple of the people that were on production were saying that the unicorn is symbolic for, I mean, not symbolic, but the unicorn pretty much confirms that Deckard is a replicant.
Yeah, people make that argument, but and I'm glad you brought that up because that's another one of those scenes where I would rather do without it. You know, you're like in a sci-fi dystopian world, and then you got like a 40-second clip of a unicorn like galloping through a forest. I'm like, what the fuck's even going on? Like,
am I watching a fucking Twilight movie right now?
Yeah. I don't think it necessarily confirms that he's a replicant because, like, as you see the other police officer make a unicorn origami thing at the end there. I think it's just like, you know, what he's doing, trying to evade the law and take this replicant girl with him is maybe like, you know, chance in a million. Like, it's lucky, it's rare. I don't know.
Facts. Mega facts. Mark, we can't hear you, bro. You got your still can't hear me. A little bit.
It is not. It's not Mark's night.
Tonight is not Mark's night. I know this dude is probably like throwing his fucking computer right now. Probably. I would be too. Trust me, I would be too. But you know, going back to this final cut of this movie, and compared to the other cuts, there's a lot of things that they actually redid for the final cut, which was what they put it in 4K. Is that correct?
I can't confirm that, but I know that the one thing that stands out for me for the final cut is that ending scene where he releases the pigeon.
Yeah,
and it flies out to a dark sky, but then in the theatrical one, it's like bright blue, and I'm like, what the fuck? It was like raining. So I'm glad they did that.
Oh man, some of those things just didn't, like, you go back and you look at it and you're like, man, I'm actually kind of glad they did a final cut, because I probably would be shitting on this movie if it was only the theatrical version, because it's like some of it just doesn't make sense.
And most people did when it first came out. It was not popular. Like, people didn't like this movie initially.
And then it was re-released in 92, so 10 years later? Or something like that? Or I think so. Yeah, something like that.
I mean, wherever. Yeah.
And so when they re-released it, that's when it gained its popularity, right? which is crazy. It's crazy how a final, because now that kind of makes me want to go back and watch the shitty cut. You know what I mean? It makes me want to go back and watch the theatrical cut, just because it's like, okay, if we see the theatrical cut, and then you see the final cut, and they hated this one, but they love the final cut. It's like, all right, so what exactly, how did this all resonate to everyone that sat down and watched it completely in one whole sitting? You know what I mean? Mark, are you there? So, Danny, he left again. All right, so we probably won't be getting Mark tonight. I'll just go ahead and say we probably won't be getting Mark tonight. Let's hope and pray that his internet gets better. But going on in terms of you got Roy, you've got Decker, and they both meet up at the end of this movie. And I gotta add this too, because this is not common for me, where I'm expecting a movie, because I expected a lot of action in this movie. I don't know why. I really don't know why I expect a lot of action in this movie, but for some reason, in terms of like the setting and everything like that, you guys can even see like the little background that I put on here for the review. I'm so in love with the setting of this movie and just the theme, just all of it. I love it. With that being said, I thought there was going to be a lot more action in this movie than there was. Still a little bit of action in this movie, but it's again, this is more of a story-driven kind of film, and you don't really realize it until you get halfway through, and you're like, okay, there's shit you got to figure out. So if they did start throwing out action everywhere and shit like that, you probably have a more shitty movie in that theatrical version than you already did. So again, this is very rare for me to say, but I do appreciate the fact that I expected action, and that although I expected action, we didn't get much of action in this movie, which I honestly appreciated, because it gave you a chance to not only catch up with the story, but to also digest everything you're getting in terms of the story, because there's a lot of information that you have to intake while watching this movie to actually fully understand things. Is that the way you felt when you first saw this movie? I don't know. I'm sure you were probably a little kid when you first watched it, but if you can remember when you first, saw Blade Runner, were you expecting a lot of action in this movie?
I can't say that I was. I think I was about 15, and
Okay.
this dude who was living at my house put it on, and he was like entrenched in the lore of it, so he explained it like as it was coming on and all that stuff. So I had like a good idea of what I was in for, and I just fell in love from there. So, but
So that's
but I
so that's
but I
good. You
will
got a
say
good
that,
precursor.
yeah, with lack of action, I mean, for me, I think there's enough. There's just enough, like you're saying.
Yeah. And you don't realize it until the end, though. That's the thing. It's like, throughout the movie, I'm not saying, where's the action? But I'm thinking to myself, like, I thought this was, more like a sci-fi action kind of movie. You get to the end, and you got Deckard and Roy there, and they had their little fight or whatever. Pretty much, Roy's running around in his underwear chasing Deckard. But, you finally get to them. You get to that last, fight scene or whatever, and you see Deckard about to die. Now, this is the turning point for me when it comes to this movie, because, excuse me, again, I'm not shitting on this movie throughout the movie when I'm watching it, but I'm like, not as good as what I thought it was. But then you get to the part where Roy saves Deckard. And when he does that, the game's changed. When he does that, that's when you start thinking to yourself, at least I was sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, they're telling something much deeper than what I thought in this movie. Because yeah, you get little glimpses of, or little pockets of deep themes and deep, I guess, storytelling throughout this one story they're trying to tell. But it's the very end of this movie that really gets it. The very end of this movie where I'm like, Mm, okay. So they're pretty much telling you a story of Roy and that monologue that he did, and it's talking about the tears and I'm like, bruh, the raindrop. I'm like, all right, they got me. They fucking got me. And that's when I was like, I gotta watch this movie again so I can actually fully understand it. Still don't fully understand everything, but I really fuck with it. I really fuck with this franchise. I cannot wait to see more of it. But what did you think of this ending part in terms of, yes, Roy turned good, died. Do you think we're gonna see more glimpses of this? Well, you already know in 2049, but are we gonna see more glimpses of this in 2049 in terms of replicants actually being, I wouldn't say actually being good, but replicants actually telling a deeper story in terms of what should they, not should they, but what could they all have in common in terms of this one, collective story?
Well, for sure. Seeing the second movie, I can confirm, but I'm not going to say too much. Um, but the whole struggle we have, and it's not that Roy is even a bad guy initially. It's just that Mark's watching. What's up, Mark? It's just the man. I wish he was here because we probably have way more to say about
I
this.
know, yeah, I know.
He's the deep
We
one.
wish you were here, Mark.
You're the deep one, Mark. You left us high and dry. It's more about like just what it means to be human. So it's not that Roy was not justified in any of his actions. He met his creator. He like faced God essentially, and and he didn't get any answers, which is probably comparable to struggles that real people have
Yeah.
in terms of theology and shit like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like there's so much of I wouldn't even say realism in this movie, but there's so much of like you can kind of relate in this movie. It was more of like, human relation into this movie of you're not always going to have your fairy tale ending. You're not always going to have the answers when you need them or when you feel like you need them. This is a movie that is teaching you some of these lessons. That's saying, hey, look, you never know what. I mean, you could get a million fucking things out of those last 5 minutes of this movie. You really could, and that's why it was so special to me. Because I'm sitting there, I'm like, this dude is literally just like you see him just sitting there in the rain, and he's just airing it all out, and he's just saying, "Look, man." I mean, obviously, these aren't his words, but I'm just summing it up, just saying, like, "Look, man, I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna leave my." He's sitting there talking about his memories too. Like, look, I'm gonna leave my memories where I know at least they'll matter because it's the end. It's the end for me. Which is crazy. It's crazy that Roy, for some reason, this dude decided to air all this shit out right then and there in the rain, on his knees, and he's over there telling Deckard, the guy that he's been trying to kill for the past hour, all of this, and now Deckard's got to take all of this. And like, this movie is crazy, but in such a good way, such a good way. Mark says, he says, I don't think Roy was evil so much as he was desperate. He says, I think Tyrell made Nexus 6 too sophisticated and didn't expect the kind of insight and depth that Roy had. Ooh. Now, I do want to ask you, Smith, on top of what Mark said, do you think that Tyrell didn't expect that kind of insight from Roy because he was a replicant? Or do you think so because he made him, or he tried making Roy into literally just a replicant?
I think knowing enough about the whole lore of this universe, um, he probably created Roy with that intention, maybe not expecting to die, but in
Mhm.
hopes that they would try to figure this out for themselves. Like, how do we get more life? He definitely knew that was coming. Maybe he didn't see him dying that way. But yeah.
I gotta say, man, the more and more I talk about fucking just that ending, man, it's just because I'm telling you guys that was the real big turning point for me when it comes to the way I view this movie. Because I view this movie as before the ending, I view this movie as like, yeah, it's cool, yeah, whatever, but it just something wasn't hitting for me. And then it's just that last scene, it was just like, oh fuck. And might I add, by the way, before we get to Mark's comment, might I add, by the way, I did not know that Gaff was Edward James Olmos. I did not know that. That was shocking to me. That's actually pretty cool. That's pretty fucking awesome. Just a little fun fact out there for people who know who Edward James Olmos is. Shout out to Mark. He says, I think he saved Deckard at the end because he knew that he was going to die and saw there was no point in killing Deckard at that time.
I don't think he had intentions to kill him at all. During that last scene when they're in the building.
And
because he could have killed him whenever he fucking wanted to. I mean, they were like in the same room multiple times. And he's just like nonchalantly following him around.
True. So, but what do you think he was trying to do if he wasn't trying to kill him? At least at that time.
I don't know. Live life to the fullest. Chasing someone around for no reason.
Just playing hide and go seek.
Yeah.
Grown man hide and go seek. In its underwear, by the way. Let's not forget that. Dude was running around commando. What Mark said though, because for a second I was like, maybe it's not as deep as what I thought. I mean, not saying it's still not deep, but saying that I thought he was going to try and kill Deckard. I still think that Roy was really, I wouldn't say he was really trying to kill Deckard, but I think that he was playing around with Deckard. He knew that he could kill him. And he at least wanted Deckard to think he was going to kill him, which is what I think. Now, once obviously you get to that part where he grabs his hand and he saves him, whatever. I mean, dude fucked up his fingers. I forgot about that part. Again, it's been a couple days since I've seen it, but dude, I remember he fucking cracked this. What did he do? Crack his fucking fingers?
Oh yeah, he broke like 3 of them.
Yeah, and he was like, "Bet you can't fucking shoot straight." And he said, "God damn, you're right. I cannot fucking shoot straight." But you get to that point where Roy he goes in and tries to save Deckard, and I thought that was, again, I keep talking about this turning point, right? But I think that was the part where it was like, okay, now Roy starts to see it. Now Roy starts to see, okay, look, I have no reason to kill. I gain nothing by killing this man. I kill this man, I'm still another fucking replicant. I'm still a replicant at the end of the day, and I'm still gonna die the same. You know what I mean? So, I would hate for it to be just so simple as you know what. There's just no point in me killing that. Like I would like for it to be. Now again, this is me being a deep thinker, anyways. But I would like to think that it was more of, yo, I have a plan. Before I die, to kind of not necessarily transcend, but kind of pretty much give someone all of my memories. Again, not literally give them memories, but like just try and like have this last hope, last swan song before you go off and die. Because at the end of the day, you're a replicant, you're not a human. But he wanted that human emotion. And it seemed like to me, I don't know. Maybe you guys might disagree. Maybe you and Mark might disagree. But I thought that he kind of showed human emotion at the end of that movie. That Roy did.
I mean, well, you got to think about how the whole altercation started there at the end. Because up until that point, Roy and Deckard had never met. I don't think Roy was aware of him, and I know Deckard was, but the whole reason they got into that fight was because he killed Pris.
Yeah, he killed old girl, right?
But in the scene right before that, he said Pris hasn't got long anyways. So he knew that she was going to die, which is why he probably didn't have intentions to kill him ever. It was just when he was rightfully angry, you just shot his cohort or whatever you want to call her.
But maybe it could have been how she died. You know, it could have been how she died too. That kind of made him, because remember he looked at her. Roy walked over there. He kneeled down and he, kind of like he did what he did with her blood. Whatever the fuck he did with her blood, and he sniffed it or whatever.
She smeared it on his face. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean. I don't know, man. Again, this is a movie that is super duper subjective. Like this movie is way more subjective than I've been able to witness of any other movie. Just from the things I've seen on the internet in terms of, people are really divided on different themes of the movie, whether Deckard's a replicant or not. Like it's all pretty much an open fucking door with this movie. Seems like, Mark says, I think Roy was losing his mental faculties. He was howling and monologuing. Although the monologue was brilliant, ultimately he was only 4 years old and all of his memories are implanted. Damn. What a sad what a sad life to live though, being a replicant. Memories that aren't even yours. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy. What do you think, Smith? You think he was he was losing his mental, his mental abilities?
It's definitely subjective, like you're saying. I mean, you can look at it both ways, because it's not really explained how their deterioration takes effect, like whether or not they go mad their last final hours of life or maybe days. I don't know. But you could definitely make that argument because he was running around in his underwear, chasing down a guy with a gun. So
that's true. And the fact that we don't know if it's what a battery runs out or something. Like we have no fucking idea.
Well, they're not like robots.
Yeah,
they're like synthetic. They're like
clones, kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, like but I mean, but we still don't know what goes on with them internally, though. Like what makes them die after 6 years? I'm sure you might know if you want to tell us.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Because they do a bunch of.
I was like, I want the fucking answer.
They do a bunch of right when he's talking with Tyrell right before he kills him. They do a bunch of like science babble. He's like, what about a recombination event of the mRNA or the fucking mitochondria shit? Like, I don't think that means anything in reality. Like they're just chatting it up. Techno babble. Yeah, that's what it is.
And we'll go on to Mark. Mark, he said, I think Roy was extremely emotional near the end. Very, very. And he says, I think he was overwhelmed with him. I think he broke Deckard's fingers for retiring his friends. He said so while he was doing it. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing too. The retiring term is another thing that I found interesting with this as well. Because they don't call it killing them, they call it retiring them, which I always found interesting. Ever since seeing that very beginning of the movie, and they say retiring, and I'm like, although I will add to the beginning of this movie, I'm glad we got that little synopsis. Is that at the beginning of the theatrical version?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. So this will probably be in every version then, right?
Yeah, and it's a good good rundown. Like especially if you're coming into it without knowing anything, like you read that and you're like, oh, okay. But this is also in the same universe as Alien and Prometheus.
I remember you said that.
Yeah.
Which are obviously Ridley Scott. They're all doing Ridley Scott. We'll have a discussion about Prometheus too, by the way. A lot of people don't like Prometheus. I'm kind of split on it a little bit. I got to watch it again. Because I watched it the first time couple years ago. It's okay. But I think I might have tried watching it recently and I didn't finish it. So I have to go back and watch that movie again. Um, but yes, 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 yes. Deckard, I believe, what was definitely he definitely got his fingers broken because Roy. I mean, because he retired Roy's friends. Yes. Um, was Roy extremely emotional in the end? Yes. Um, and then he says, I think he was overwhelmed with them. I don't know if he was overwhelmed with them. I guess maybe I don't know. I mean, again, that part is definitely, um, that's an open door because that's never been explained. No one really knows. We can only go by what we see, right? We can only go by what we think, what we think he feels in terms of being emotional, right? But yes, I do agree, Mark. That he was very emotionally and I thought that that's what really added to to the depth of the movie, to the depth of the story, if not the character as well. Because while Roy, I don't think Roy really had that much depth in the movie until the end, until we saw the full, everything came full circle. That monologue to me, I thought was emotional. Smith, I don't know if you think differently. I don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely, definitely, he was going through some things.
He's going through some shit.
He's going through some shit. You're like moments from dying. What are you gonna say?
Facts, mega facts. Mark goes on. He says the end of the theatrical release was wedged in and out of place with the rest of the film. Ooh, ooh, that's not good. That's not good. It was done because the original theatrical release did bad with test audiences. It was done because the original theatrical release did bad with test audiences. Huh. With test audience or just audiences in general? Because that would be the theatrical release, right? That was
Right.
the original 82 version, right? But I mean, I see what you're saying though. I see what you're saying though. But the end of that being wedged in and out of place. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things wrong with it. And again, this isn't because of Ridley Scott, I don't think. I mean, it very well could be. Who the fuck knows? But I mean, he still did a majority of the final cut. I mean, he pretty much did all the legwork in terms of making the content of the movie, right? Mark goes on. He's okay. So he says with the test audience before the release. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so before they even released the movie out to the public with the test audiences, they did that shit with the theatrical release movie, with the theatrical cut, which is crazy, man. Which is crazy because if he's saying that the end of that movie was wedged in and out of place, that can only tell you. I mean, that can only say what was in the rest of this movie in the theatrical release. So I mean, I got some homework to do. Man. I gotta watch this. I gotta watch the theatrical cut. Then I gotta watch this cut again. Then I gotta watch 2049. Then I gotta watch the shorts. And Kavari never got back to us whether or not they're coming out with a fucking series or not. So I guess I gotta look that up too.
Maybe that's why he's not back. He's still looking.
just coming on here, start lying about what's coming out and shit. Come on, Kavari. But yeah, Smith. So now we, again, this is a very laid back review. But obviously, I got to ask this question, the most famous question we ask here on Half Ass Pod, which is grades. Now, Smith, I'm pretty sure I know what grade you're going to give this movie, but I figured I'd go ahead and ask you anyways. If you had to rate Blade Runner, final cut. Smith, what would your grade be and why?
102%. So A plus plus. A plus with extra credit. They answered the bonus question.
A plus with a gold star.
But as to why, I guess I'll touch on something we didn't talk about too much, which was the death of Zora. You remember when she got killed?
Yes.
So that whole scene, and even leading up to that, is there's tons of symbolism and all this stuff. Like she's running down a hallway, surrounded by mannequins who are wearing, similar clothing. It's like that see-through plastic style, and it's like to imply that she is also not a human. And then when she gets killed, of course, she crashes into another window, and it's like filled with artificial snow for their fashion. They're like promoting their shit, and it's like, yeah, she's not real, but you're supposed to feel like bad for her. So it's a conflicting scene, I guess. Especially you hear a heartbeat in that too, and you think it's I can't remember which one. Initially, when you watch it, I think you think it's Decker's, or you think it's Zora's, but then like after she dies, you still hear it because he was the one, like getting nervous about this.
Which is crazy, and that's another reason why I think he's human. By the way,
yeah, because he's not really taking a human life, but that's we have the question, well, like, what does it mean to be human? Did he actually just kill something with the soul, or however you want to say it? Yeah.
And that's gotta be terrible to feel like that as someone who, like, I mean, because every single life that this dude takes, you kind of think to yourself, like, is he killing a human, or did he kill a replicant? Was this really a replicant? You know what I mean? So I mean that should tell you right there. You're coming to grips with, I just took a life, but is it human? Is there a real soul? Is there a real heartbeat in this? You know what I mean? So I mean, you hit the nail right on the head with that one, most definitely. Because I would be I would be thinking the same thing if I were Deckard. I'd be like, holy shit, did I just, you know what I mean? Like, did I just take a fucking human life, or did I take is this a replicant? Is this something that eventually at the end of the day is not even somewhat not even real? But Smith, we knew what your grade was going to be.
Yeah.
We knew what your grade was going to fucking be when you said, this is my favorite movie. I was like, oh shit. Yep. It's going to be A+. So after watching this movie, not once, but twice, I got to get this movie a B+. And the reason why I get this movie B+ is because when I first started this movie, I'm sitting there trying to just gain information in like the first 20-25 minutes of this movie. And then you realize throughout this entire movie, you're still gaining information. But what I really wanted to do, I really wanted to sit back and kind of just watch this movie and enjoy it for the story that it is. But in order to understand the story, you kind of gotta keep up, with quite a few things. But it's also fun. So I had more fun the second time around I watched it, because the first time was more like information day for me. Kind of. Yeah, it was more like an informational watch. The second time around I watched it, I was like, yo, there's something to this. There's something to this. So I'm gonna have to get it a B+. I mean, it's not gonna get an A from me because I wasn't like super in love with this movie or anything like that. But I fuck with this movie heavy. And the only thing that's keeping it from giving me at least an A-, is because I had to watch the movie twice. And that's not necessarily a terrible thing for me to do, but with a movie that I didn't think I would be having to watch a second time to actually fully understand it, I had to. Again, that's not really shitting on the movie. That's more of just, I didn't really like want to watch this movie a second time, but after seeing it the first time, I was like, you know what, I probably should watch it a second time to kind of at least enjoy it. So it did take 2 watches for me to fully enjoy it, but at the end of the day, I fully enjoyed this movie. I'm ready to see the next one. Got to give it a B+. So that's my take on it. Let's go on to Mark and see what his take is on this. Mark says, I give it an A+. It's almost a perfect film. Wow. He says, the only complaint I have is the scene when Leon shoots the Blade Runner. The actual shooting was kind of clunky. How about to say clunky? Clunky. Ooh. Smith, any thoughts on the on Leon shooting the Blade Runner?
Yeah, so that's like one of the opening scenes there, and he shoots him from under the table, and you kind of have
goes
to, like,
over the table.
Yeah, you gotta take a second look, because it jump cuts really fast, him like flying back in his chair, and you're like, what the fuck is even going on here? Because it's like out of left field, especially if it's your first time. You're like, why is he shooting this dude?
Facts. And then the chair turns around and he goes like the dude goes full force to like the next wall. Like
He goes through the fucking wall.
I'm like, what the? I'm like, it's either gonna be like really wacky or it's gonna be really fucking like it's gonna be like John Wick in the '80s or some shit. Who knows? But you look, Mark. Yeah, I'm right there with you in terms of that clunky scene. I again, in my second watch, I enjoyed it. So the second watch was more of just like, hey, I'm sitting back watching a movie. I've got the information now that I need to sit back and enjoy it. What now? If you had to kind of, obviously, you and Mark didn't really, I guess, advertise the movie for me. You guys were like, hey, look, just watch it. Here's a little precursor. But if you had to recommend someone how many times they should watch this movie, how many times would you say they should have to watch this movie?
As many times as it takes till it gets an A+. Which I imagine if I ask you the same question to you, you're gonna be like, yeah, A+.
After watching it a third time, maybe. Because after watching a third time, especially after doing this movie review, and then I'll be watching it after 2049. Maybe. Mark says, let's go back. Yeah, Mark up here in the comments. Hey, we've missed you, Mark. He says, the end is a scene where it shows Deckard and Rachel driving out to the wilderness. They used shots from The Shining of the forest from the beginning of The Shining. Okay. Okay. They used, I believe that unicorn scene too was from a different movie. Was from one of Ridley Scott's old movies, I believe. Which was interesting. Mark also, he goes on to say, he says the editing seemed off. You hear the shots, see some holds being made and stuff. Then it jumps to him standing up. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, he's talking about the Leon scene. Okay, yeah. Yeah, you're right, because when I first saw that scene, and yeah, you hear the shot, and then it pans back to Leon, and he has the gun, and it's like, where the fuck did that come from? Like, but again, it happens so fast where it's just like, huh? And he's going to the next scene, and you see Deckard, and he's there, and he's talking with Gaffin, and it's like, you kind of forget about it after it actually happens. But during the scene, you're sitting there, and you're like, okay, I mean, weird flex, but okay. But yeah, you're right, Mark. And he says, otherwise, everything is masterfully done. Something is missing in this movie, and I don't know what it is for me to say that I love this movie. That's the only part. I mean, that's the only problem. Is I docked it down from an A because I had to watch it twice. But I don't know what's holding me back from actually loving this movie. Maybe I have to watch. Maybe I got to be like Smith and just watch the movie once a month or some shit. Maybe I got to watch the movie more and more and more for me to fall in love with it more. But for right now, man, I mean, there were parts of this movie that were masterfully done to me. Obviously, it's subjective in my opinion, but that's just me. But I mean, again, I'm probably gonna have to watch the movie more to see what you see, Smith, in this movie and what Mark sees in this movie. For you guys, it's just no questions asked, A+. And I'm just like, huh, interesting. Mark goes on to say, he says, I think the unicorn may have been from Ridley Scott's movie Legend. Okay, yeah, so I think that's what it was, which was made immediately after Blade Runner, which would make sense because, yeah. The scene was not in the theatrical cut. Yep. Which I mentioned earlier, the scene wasn't in the theatrical cut. It was only in this cut, which is what part of the reason why people think that Deckard is a replicant. But yeah, mega facts. So, Smith, you got anything else to say about Blade Runner?
No, that's about it, I think. I could probably talk for another 3 hours, but
so I have been told by not told by, but I have heard some opinions about 2049 and very rare opinions when it comes to sequels, by the way, but that the sequel is even better than the original.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot too. I don't agree.
Ooh,
it's a good film. That's another A+ film right there, but it's
2049.
Yeah, it's just hard to compare. It's like apples to oranges because this is coming out fucking what 40 years later, almost.
Damn near. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not really like if they had what we have now when they filmed the original Blade Runner, we'd probably see similar art direction and it would be comparable, but it's just not the same.
Facts. I mean, do you think that people say that it's even better than the first because of the physical, or is it because of the story?
I think people say that
without giving spoilers, obviously.
It's mostly people who started with 2049 who say that. So they see this polished 20. What did it come out? 2019, I think.
Yeah,
2018.
2018.
One of the years. They see this polished gem because they got all the movie magic now, and they're like, "Wow, what a masterpiece!" And then they go back to the original Blade Runner because they're like, "Oh, I got to catch up. I don't know exactly what's going on." And they see like looking back at it from what we get now, it's just a little. It's it's cute. It's like it's like a school play almost compared. But
Okay. So I mean, look, guys, my next project is to watch 2049. So Blade Runner 2049 gets a vote from me. And so I think that's on HBO Max as well. It should be because the Blade Runner Final Cut is on there. So I don't see why it shouldn't be on there. So soon I will be watching 2049, and we will be back here to review 2049. And I also catch the shorts too. I mean, would you suggest that we review the shorts as well along with 2049, or is that more just a okay?
I would say it's mandatory. It just fills in gaps that it would. Yeah, you gotta have it.
Okay, all right. So that's what we're gonna do for our next movie review, which will come after obviously Freddy versus Jason, but yeah. So stay tuned for that, guys. We got another comment down here from Mark. Mark says, I saw Blade Runner several years over the course of my life, and it feels different every time I see it. Ooh. Well, Smith, you may not be too far off about the more times I see it, the more I might get up to an A+. Because even Mark says that it feels different every time he sees it. Maybe that's why you can watch it once a month, Mark. I mean, not Mark, Smith. You can watch Blade Runner once. Do you really watch it once every month?
Pretty much, yeah. That's
Christ.
not an exaggeration.
Oh man, dude, that's great. That's nuts. Is that the only movie you watch once a month?
Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy. But hey, man, everybody's got that one movie that they just never get fucking tired of. Like that one movie you just sit there and just never get tired of. So I mean, I feel you. I definitely feel you on that one. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for our next movie reviews. as well as our next episode of the film panel as well. Mark, he cannot be here tonight, obviously, because his internet's messed up, but he's been here in the chat. So make sure you guys check out Mark Plaid at Walter Paisley Cafe, as well as Spadal. And I believe he has another link or another site that he's on. I don't know which site it is that he's on. Jaron coming in late AF saying yo. And Jaron, you know what I'm going to say to you back? Bye, because we were about to hop off. But thank you for coming in and showing support for the channel as you always do. The homie, always the bro, always coming in here showing some love as we always do. But yeah, make sure you guys check out Mark Plaid at Walter Paisley Cafe and Spadal. And I believe, what was the other? Do you know what the other site it was, Smith?
He has a T Public as well.
Oh yeah. He's got T Public. But it was some other. It was like Red Book or something like that he's on. But yeah,
Red Bubble.
Redbubble. Yeah. So make sure you check out Walter Paisley Cafe and Spadal on Redbubble as well. And I'll be putting the links, but I do have the links below for Walter Paisley and Spadal, and obviously for Smith and myself here on Half Ass Pod. But I'll be putting the Redbubble link for Mark down there as well. So make sure you guys keep an eye out for that. With that all said and done, y'all know where to find me. I am me. Smith, you got any plugs?
Nope.
Well, I am me. This is Smith, ladies and gentlemen. We just finished reviewing Blade Runner, the final cut from 1982, or actually technically from 1992. But yeah, we're the Half-Ass Film Panel, ladies and gentlemen, and we are OU.